Hi everybody, welcome. I'm doing a video today on pleasure and what it takes to kind of break through this place of not enough and expand into pleasure and expand into your free flow of life energy and be able to be in that with somebody else, yeah? So a lot of times, when I work with clients and the issue of relationship, this place really comes up quite a lot, and it's like the most common thing is like I get into my head, or my partner isn't doing the thing just right, and it's like I get out of the state of pleasure and into my wounds, or after sexual intimacy it doesn't feel good, and what it takes to kind of break through that and show up and feel connected to yourself and feel connected to pleasure and be in a free flow of energy. And so I want to thank you for watching, and if you have any questions, please type them. I'd be really happy to answer them either live or later on in the comments or other videos. I really love interacting and hearing your perspectives on it. And so what is pleasure? Number one, pleasure is not like this orgasm, it's not about like achieving climax. In fact, for people who are struggling with addiction, with sexual addiction, orgasm can actually be a very unpleasurable thing. It can be a place of shame or a place of not enough or a cycle. So orgasm and pleasure are not synonymous, although they very much can be. And pleasure is not just sexual. Our sexual energy gives a huge opening into a state of pleasure. But it is not all about that. But we are talking about it in a sexual context right now. And so I don't have notes for this video. I'm just kind of free-flowing because pleasure is a free-flow state. Pleasure is a place of expansion. It's a place where we feel relaxed and in our body. We have to stay present and feel our body, feel what's happening right now, feel the connection to be able to really experience the state of bliss. So if we are, in a place of sexual intimacy, if we're engaging in sex or other forms of physical intimacy with someone, and we start thinking we're like here, we start thinking about the past or the future, we're not in a place of pleasure. That takes us out. In fact, I'm sure many of us can relate. We're feeling good, we're feeling pleasure, we're really aroused, and then a thought comes in and it starts looping, and like boom, all of the hi Marco, all of the arousal is just gone. It's completely gone. So it's really about staying in our bodies. And this is kind of where it is. Now, how do we stay in our bodies? Of course, it's really easy to say, but it's much more difficult to do. The place of staying in our bodies necessitates a certain degree of emotional safety, because it's when we feel safe with somebody that we can connect and we can open up and be vulnerable to this place of pleasure. And this place of not enough is always also just happens quite a lot when we're engaging with somebody, right? And Marco, if you have any questions, also please let them be heard, because I'd love to answer them. So with this place of we're engaging, we're aroused, and then something, our partner does something that is just not right, like they're not touching us in the exact way that we want to, and it's like, and we get annoyed and we get frustrated and the stuff comes up, So how to break through that place of not just right? In this place of not just right, if we experience it in sexuality, chances are we experience it in other places where we relate to others. It can be with our partner, with our parents, with our friends, with our colleagues, with our boss. Like something is just not right that makes us feel constricted. Yeah, so the opposite of pleasure, in the tantric world, they say the opposite of pleasure is more pleasure. Yeah. But the opposite of pleasure can also be tension. When we're like, oh, tense, we don't allow the energy to flow. So pleasure can also be described as a free flow of energy. We feel our energy moving in our body. We allow this free flow and we don't get constricted. And this place of constriction is the place of not enough. And so the journey, whether it's in sexuality or any other place of feeling like our needs are met, is boundaries and expressing our needs to get us to safety, right? So we need to feel our safety. And when we express our needs, it can be an incredibly vulnerable place, because what happens in sexuality is, to be able to feel pleasure, we have to open our hearts up. We have to open our bodies up. Yeah, we have to open our bodies up to penetration, or to feel another person, or to feel ourselves, feel all the feelings that come up. And it's a place of deep vulnerability. And the thing is, in sexuality, it's really easy to bypass this place of vulnerability into kind of like just getting there. If you're a man, one of the wounding in our patriarchal society is for men to like rush to the bottom, like rush to climax, and to like please the other person. And so there's actually quite a lot of burden that can be placed on, in a kind of a heterosexual relationship as well as homosexual relationship. It doesn't matter who you're with. If you're taking on this place of needing to please the other person for it to be just right, or getting off, you're in this shadow of this kind of masculine energy. And then with the women, in the feminine energy, it's also quite the same, For the women, for the feminine energy, there's a lot of this place of, oh, if he didn't enjoy it, or then it's not right. So we're really preoccupied about the other person quite a lot in sexuality, much more than we are with ourselves. And when we're preoccupied with the other person's pleasure, we're not feeling our own pleasure, right? So that's a huge hurdle to move through. And so I want to talk a little bit today about some of the practical steps in sexuality to break through these places of not just right, and then some of the deeper wounding from which these places grow, right? So, let's just take a minute there. And again, I'm free-flowing with all of this because that's what, life force energy does. It free flows. And so I feel called to just spend maybe 30 seconds, if you're watching this, just sit down, take a few breaths, feel your seat, feel your pelvis kind of sink into where your seat is, and just feel your body. This is really important in all walks of life, especially in sexuality. Feel your body and breathe through it. And just notice, without having to change it, what comes up for you when talking about, experiencing this topic of sexuality, of engaging sexually with another person, what the wounds are, what some of the past experiences are, and what that brings into you, into your heart. What are the feelings? And the primary feelings, the primary emotions that we have are anger, sadness, fear, and joy. And we're always in a state of one or a combination of these feelings, even though sometimes we choose to repress them, to numb them, to not feel them, to bypass them. So the more we feel these places, the more we can step into our pleasure. And Marco just wrote, any recourse about the womb electrifying when the masculine entered to pray inside the feminine temple. This place of electrifying, I'd love to find out more about it from the way that the question is written. I would say that the electrifying might mean tension, yeah, and by that tension, it denotes to me a little bit of fear and moving into that place of unsafety. And so whenever we feel not safe, and this can be, well, either for a man or a woman, whichever body you have, whichever energy you hold as a polarity, doesn't matter what body you're in, what you have in your pants. When you're not feeling safe, when this electrifying place happens and this tension happens or the mind happens, that's a red flag for you that you're not in a place of safety. And this brings us into this kind of practical steps. When we're not feeling safe, it gives us a message that we need to change course. We need to do something different. And in sexuality, that means that I would invite that to mean for you, slow down, stop. So if one or both, if you are in a sexual place of intimacy with somebody else, and your head comes online, your mental place starts looping, your body constricts, maybe your womb constricts, your yoni constricts, you stop feeling pleasure. Say, I need to slow down and connect with yourself. Take a few breaths, connect with your partner. A really good way to connect with your partner is eye gazing. So take a few moments to just look your partner in the eye. Stop. Maybe you'll lose an erection, who cares, And connect. This is really important. This is a place where you'll feel so fulfilled. And this does not need to be a place of long-term partnership or expectations down the road. This is really about pleasure, whether it's a once-off experience or with a partner for 20 years. Connect, look in their eyes, This will bring you home. Yeah, slow down. And so part of the way of, and I'm actually, as I'm saying this, I'm feeling myself and my energy kind of slow down. And this is a way of setting boundaries, yeah? Slow down and ask for what you need. Maybe I need to look at your eyes for a little bit. Maybe I like some gentle touching. It can be really vulnerable to ask for what you need in sexuality because we're so open, and so many of us have these wounds in our lives that go really, really young and really, really deep, that asking for what we need is not allowed. Yeah, taking up space is not allowed. That if I ask for what I need, they might not love me. They might not feel connected. They may leave. They may not want to do it, and I'll be rejected, and I won't feel loved. And this is a really deep place. This is a place where, by dealing with our deep wounds, we can move into states of pleasure and sexuality. But these places of not allowed to ask for what I need is something that is really profound in this human psyche and family of origin wounding that I invite you to explore. One of the ways to feel more safe in sexuality is to set the container. And so, in the tantric world, one of the ways to set a container that kind of sets a safety is create a bubble with your partner. And this is something that I coach my clients in as well, about how to set an energetic bubble. You actually hold hands and you actually make a bubble between you two, the energetic, where the energy exchange can move in a way that feels a little safer. Also talking about it before engaging. In our kind of quick to the point consumerism, more type of a culture, there's almost a stigma placed on talking about having sex before having it. It's we're not supposed to talk about our needs. You're just supposed to mentally kind of know my needs, and I'm just supposed to trust that you do, and I'll just be disappointed if you don't, and then I'm gonna blame you. And this goes for everything, besides sexuality as well. So talk about it. Talk about what you like, what you don't like. You know, we always talk about the boundaries. So for example, I would love to have a sexual experience for you, but my no's are, you know, for example, anal penetration and tickling my armpits. I don't know, you know. Those are no's. What I really love is when you stroke my neck really softly, or when you look into my eyes. And my edge is when you pull my hair, or you know, pleasurable pain. That's my edge. I'm just putting out examples out there. So our no's, our yeses, and our edges of our boundaries. Those are really useful kind of agreements, talk to have before engaging with somebody, to make it feel safe, to establish that channel of communication, and to being able to access the pleasure in the act. Yeah. And so whenever you're moving through it, if you're getting out of your body, you know, if you're in a mental loop, if you're worried about how your ass looks or the way that your stomach jiggles, in whichever way, slow down, you know, don't repress it, don't suppress it, don't be like, oh my God, I shouldn't think about this, bad me, shame, 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 worse, farther away from pleasure, you know. Take a breath and say, I need to slow down and just reconnect with you for a little bit. And this place of, you know, when you're engaging and your partner is doing something that just feels not just right for you, it's very subtle, because there's two things that are going on there. One is that there's tension that's happening in the body, and as a response to this place of tension, which denotes a lack of safety, we start trying to control the external environment to feel more safe. Yeah? So, and this again, the way that we do sexuality is the way we do everything. So, when we start getting out of our body, we don't feel safe. We try to control the external environment. And the trap with trying to control our external environment is that we never get fully satisfied. The free flow of energy doesn't work, because they need to do something better for me to feel good. They need to change for me to feel good. And if they don't change, it's their fault. Yeah. But part of being in a state of pleasure is taking responsibility for ourselves, for our bodies, for our minds, for our emotions, for our hearts, and communicating it. So it's like a dance between expressing your needs and surrendering to the receptivity from the other person. Yeah. Yeah. You know, in relationships, it's always a dance between sovereignty and synergy. I've talked about this before. How do we stay in our own sovereign power? How do we feel big? How do we feel powerful? How do we feel safe? How do we voice our needs, express our needs, take responsibility for our needs? Yeah. And at the same time, how do we align in synergy with the other? And how do we move in a way that allows to see the other person, to hear the other person, and to be able to receive from the other person? You know, giving is a lot easier sometimes than receiving. Yeah. We are sometimes really good at giving pleasure, and then we don't know how to receive it. And kind of diving deeper into this place of not enoughness, that's where it goes. It goes into these really deep, young wounds of, I need to give love to feel loved. Yeah. And it becomes really hard to receive, because there's this fear of, if I'm receiving, then the other person won't be in their state of pleasure, and they won't like it. They won't like it. And so that's why it's really hard to receive. Yeah. Marco is asking how breathing work should be there during connection. So breath during connection to yourself and to the other person is our magic in the world. Really, breath is magic. And why is breath magic? Because breathing is the only thing we as human beings, as living embodied beings, can do consciously, and we can direct it consciously. And if we forget about it, it can also be a subconscious act. You know, we can breathe without even thinking about breathing. In fact, 99.9% of the time, maybe even 100% of the time, for most people, breathing is an unconscious act. You know, dolphin, whales, for example, for them, breathing is always a conscious act, and they have to consciously rise to the surface to take a breath. Otherwise, they die. So they can even consciously die at will. We don't have that development. So breathing is a place of self-regulation and co-regulation with another person. So it can be as easy as just looking at each other's eyes and feeling your own breath. And then there's more advanced practices, tantric practices of co-breathing that circles energy deeper between you two to expand in a co-pleasurable state, as it will, especially during place of orgasm. And I'm not going to go into that right now because that's not the topic, but that's something I certainly work with my couple clients, about how to, in an act of sexual intimacy, circulate breath. And there's a lot of books around this as well. Mantak Chia does a lot of circular breathing explanations in his books, to channel energy in a giving and receiving state. So we're giving breath and we're receiving breath. We're giving energy and we're receiving energy. And actually, that is what sexuality is all about. We're giving energy and we're receiving energy. And so when we're really good at giving energy and we start being blocked in receiving energy, then this pleasure isn't able to free flow because the energy gets stuck. So when you are engaging sexually with somebody else, be conscious of how you give energy and how you receive energy. And if you're engaged just in sex, you can even part of these tantric practices is that if you are kind of in your feminine energy, and again, it doesn't matter what body you have, if you're in your feminine energy, you can imagine giving your energy from the heart. And if you're in your masculine, you can give your energy from your sex. And so there's a movement that goes up and down. It's like circulates. But this place of safety is a place that I really want to really harp on. In order to feel pleasure, we have to feel safe. And if we don't feel safe, then we feel constricted, and we try to control the external environment and be like, oh, do this, do that, you're not doing it right, you're not doing it right, whether it's about doing the dishes or sexual pleasure, you're not doing it right. And there is a place where we express our needs that takes responsibility for how we want to be treated, how we like pleasure. And then there's also this place of receptivity that allows for breath and allows for relaxation. So, sorry, my leg is really asleep, and it's not allowing me to be in a purely pleasurable state right now. So I'm going to take care of myself, and I'm going to breathe through my leg not feeling pleasure. Slow down this talk, and feel my leg, feel myself come back into my body. Stop looping about the fact that my leg is not in a state of pleasure, and then I'm giving this talk, and this place like, oh my God, how can I be? Like the thoughts, the anxiety of like, I have to think about my leg, and I can't think about this little video. That's exactly what happens. Name it. It's a very vulnerable place, but name it. Come back into your body. Breathe. Connect with your partner. and see what happens. The other thing that I really want to touch a little bit of a base on is that in our culture, there's so much importance given to orgasm. Yeah, it's like for men, you gotta have to like rub it out, or else it's not finished, you know. And for women, it's like, oh, if I don't feel orgasm, then I'm not in a state of pleasure. And so there's this like race to the bottom happens, and it's like the quicker everybody comes, the better, because check, you know. And that is like the opposite of pleasure. That's the opposite of connection, you know. That's the opposite of joy. And it's the opposite of being present, because we want something to happen to feel a certain way. And so when working with individuals and also couple clients, I often offer this thing. If you're in an act of sexual intimacy with somebody that you trust, whether it's, you know, one night or a 20-year relationship, whatever, show up in this way, give it a try. It's like, hey, can we focus on pleasure and not orgasm? And in fact, not have orgasm during this act. Like tonight, we're not doing orgasms. We're doing everything but orgasm, you know? And we're gonna try not to have orgasm for as long as we possibly can. Hopefully till the end, yeah? And see how that works for you, because it becomes this really beautiful experience where the pressure is off to climax, whether you're a man or a woman, and you're just trying to enjoy it for what it is, you know? It's like, oh, I really love the way that you do this, and I really love the way you do this. And, you know, it's a full exploration of the body. It's really amazing how much emphasis in pleasure is given to the genitals, you know? In fact, I think most people, most of the time, when they think sex, they really think of just like that, and that's it. And when you take the pressure off of orgasming, sexuality becomes about the whole body. You know, it really, you know, your ear, your neck, whatever feels good to you, can have just as much as importance as your yoni or your penis, you know. And it really slows the game down and takes the pressure off of what pleasure should be. Pleasure is a free flow state. It's a place of feeling your whole body. You know, when you get into these deep places, you know, you can feel the orgasm in your entire body. You can feel it in your head and your shoulders and your chest. It's not a genital thing, because the energy isn't just concentrated there, it's everywhere, it's flowing. Yeah. And so, you know, another practical step that I would recommend in being more attuned to your pleasure is obviously self-pleasure. Now, self-pleasure is not synonymous with masturbation, because a lot of times masturbation is synonymous with getting off, and pleasure is synonymous with relaxation. Certainly you can tense and then relax. And so I invite people, if you have time issues or whatever in your day, you know, set a timer for 20 minutes, for 15 minutes, for 30 minutes, however much time you have. And so that time pressure thing is off. You know, I like timers, because a lot of times we're pleasuring, and then it's like, oh no, I have to go make dinner. Oh no, I should call my friend, and it's like this loop. But when you have a timer, you're like, okay, for 20 minutes, I can do just this, and I am not thinking about, you know, the friend I have to call or that bill I have to pay. So set this timer and just explore your body. Explore your body everywhere. You don't have to finish. You don't have to orgasm. But see how pleasure shows up in your body. See where it shows up. See if you like soft touch. See if you like scratching. See if you like pain. You know, pull your own hair. Whatever feels, explore it. Explore it, because you are your best lover. It may feel like a contradiction, but I think it very much is the truth that we our other people can only pleasure us in the way that we know how to receive the pleasure. And we learn how to receive the pleasure when we pleasure ourselves. You know, we get in touch with our pleasure, first with ourselves and then with another person. I listened to a talk once by one of the leads in ISTA, in the sexual shamanic school where I study, Baba Dis, and he said something. He was like, you know, I have sex every day, at least once a day, at least with myself, and then if I want to share it with other people, then I share it with other people, but definitely with myself at least once a day. And that kind of flips it on its head, right? Like, first with yourself and then with another. And that is not just for sex, that is with everything in life. You know, first we show up for love with ourselves, and then it like overflows for another. That's just how it is. So I don't want to keep rambling, and you know, I can speak about this for hours. If you have more questions, please put them in the comments. I love this topic. This topic connects so much. It connects spirituality, it connects relating, it connects inner child wounds, it connects shamanic stepping into our own inner power. I love discussing this topic with both men and women and working on this topic. You know, I've had clients go through so much, from not being able to feel pleasure to like stepping into their pleasure and stepping into it with all of their power and feeling in ways they've never felt it before in decades of sexual experience. And so if you want to explore this further and you feel like you need support in this topic, please schedule a clarity call with me. I'll tell you how I work with individuals and with couples. I have different offerings. You know, for couples, I have this beautiful offering where I work with clients via Zoom as a couple, and I facilitate, you know, an act of sexual pleasure for a short amount of time, and then they can take it on their own deeper, you know, but it's a place where, you know, the camera can be off, even their sound can be off, and it's like a guided sexual experience that is so beautiful about showing up together in a way that people have never even known to show up for each other before and for themselves. And then of course with individuals, I have these 3-month containers. I have a 2-week intensive container where a 2-week intensive container is a really good place to zero in on one specific topic and get specific results out of it. So with the clarity call, we talk about what your challenges are, what your goals are, and then I will tell you how I work, how it would work with you to meet those specific goals, in what time frame, and what that would take to happen, and whether it's a good fit or not, because a lot of times it's just not a good fit. So don't wait. Pleasure is your birthright. You know, we're all living in, not all of us, but so many of us, so much of the time, are living in places of smallness, of not enough, of hurt, of victimhood, of, you know, wanting things to change and just not knowing how to, or falling into the same cycle again and again and again. And life doesn't have to be that way for anybody. You know, I know that money is an issue, time is an issue, all these things are an issue, but they're issues holding us back. And once we break through some of these things, abundance comes in, because pleasure attracts abundance. Pleasure is the expression of love. Pleasure attracts more pleasure. You know, that's why the opposite of pleasure is more pleasure, because pleasure attracts pleasure. And then we're in this free flow state of abundance, of love, of intimacy, of connection. That is just joyful. And it's like, that's what life is given to us for. It's to have joy, to have connection. Also pain, you know, pain is there for a reason. It propels us forward. Without pain, we wouldn't grow. So it's definitely important, but pain doesn't have to be a deep hole of suffering. Pain can be a very empowering place, a very connecting place, a very nurturing place, and a place that can catapult you into places in your life you've never known possible. So please reach out, get support. I would love to hear about your challenges and your goals, and show you how I work, with people from this place of not enough, not just right, into a place of pleasure and abundance. If I could do it, then definitely you can do it. All right, all my love and blessings.